Hello, and hello again. Welcome back, guys, to the Gridiron Expert here for another Wednesday night live stream. Better, in my opinion, than the Tuesday night live stream. Fix my chair real quick. We have got a great show for you tonight, man. We are talking upsets. We are talking 12-team playoff. We are talking whatever you guys bring to the table, because we are going to be taking your calls later tonight. But back by popular demand, we have brought back the banana shirt. It's Wacky Wednesday, baby. Wacky Wednesday. What we do on Wednesdays, we talk, boom, upsets. We talk upsets. And, we like to bring out some different wacky shirts here and there, have a little fun with it, be loose, just have some fun. And, when I say, hey, we're wearing a wacky shirt, some of you go, is the banana shirt coming back? We've done banana, we've done Hawaiian, we've done flamingo. I think there was one more I'm forgetting, but apparently this was the favorite. This was the go-to. This got the best response. So let's bring it back for week 9, in a week that has a potential to see a lot of big-time upsets. It could drastically affect the rankings, the playoff race, the conference races, everything going forward as we enter November, which, as we all know, is the month for contenders. November, guys, is, it's a double-edged sword there, right? It's like one of those things where I love the month of November because that's when things are starting to heat up. That's when things get crazy, but also we're nearing the end of the season. So it's a give and take type of thing. You're near the end of the season, college football slowly coming to a close, but also it's like the most exciting time because you're really starting to see some separation. You're starting to get into some big, higher quality matchups. And obviously, even when November ends, we still have conference championships and a whole month of bowl season, which is extremely exciting as well. So it's pros and cons. But we are super pumped, guys, to be here tonight talking about everything we've got lined up for you. We're anxious to take your calls just to get some good debate going, both in the chat and over the phones. And again, the phones will be a little limited tonight because we do want to focus more on the chat because we kind of go one day apiece. So having said that, I want to welcome West Virginia guy. Good to see you. He's got a big win for TCU. Even a West Virginia guy who's a West Virginia fan, he's admitting that the Mountaineers are going to struggle against the Horned Frogs on Saturday. But West Virginia guy, good to see you. Hunter 5657, good to see you. Congrats on the big Clemson win this last Saturday. Scotty B, what's going on, my man? Big time Baylor fan. Good to see you. Robert Sharpton, good to see you as well. He believes that Tennessee, or friends of him are saying that Tennessee will be the #1 team in the polls next week. And we'll actually talk about that, Robert, here in a second. Scotty, yes, hit the like button, guys. As you come in, whether you're watching now, watching later, hit that like button. It boosts our analytics tremendously, helps other people find this stream, find our channel, and ultimately, guys, we're trying to continue just to build, and that's how we do it, by you guys liking the videos, sharing the videos, promoting it on social media, telling your friends at school, like Robert. That's how we do it. So definitely hit the like button. LCD3, good to see you. D. Wayne, good to see you. He's a big Texas Tech guy. Thinks they're going to kill Baylor before they take down TCU. What a win that would be for Joey McGuire. Both of those would be huge. Eugene Murphy, good to see you, my man. Super pumped. He's a guy that jumped on these expert picks. Let me tell you, Eugene came through clutch with those a while back and has really been benefiting from those. Eugene's been such a big part of our team for a while now. So, Eugene, super pumped to have you tonight. Thank you so much for all your support. And 2016 Cavaliers, good to see you as well. He's calling it today. Penn State scores a touchdown with only 10 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Gives them a 28-21 lead over Ohio State. Florida scores the game-winning field goal, 17-14. So Cavaliers, he's saying that not only will Ohio State fall, but that Georgia will also fall. And let me tell you something. If that happens, not only am I coming back to you on Tuesday, 2016 Cavaliers, you better be here. We're gonna have to talk to you, see if you're like some guy from Back to the Future. I don't know how many of you guys have seen that movie, Back to the Future 2, where he finds the sports almanac, Biff Tannen does, and he is able, that'd probably be over everybody's head, I don't know, but, he finds the sports almanac and sees all the games, the score, so he makes his money. He had the sports almanac from the future, so he made all of his money by betting on the games, became a multimillionaire. And honestly, if that's you, 2016 Cavs, if both those things happen, I'm gonna be convinced you're from the future, because that'd be insane seeing the #1 and #2 team both go down. Talk about a major shakeup heading into the first set of playoff rankings. That would be exciting. That would be interesting too. I mean, Tennessee, if they beat Kentucky, would probably be #1. And then after that, God, I mean, TCU could rise up the rankings, Alabama could rise up, Michigan, Clemson, and then obviously seeing, two teams like that, seeing Georgia and Ohio State lose, the room for error is very small for them considering Georgia still has Tennessee, and Ohio State would still have Michigan. They'd have conference championships. So probably not going to happen, but if they do, we will be readdressing that very, very soon in the near future. So I love it. All right. Good to see everybody again. Very pumped to have all of you guys. Hopefully, whether you come in now or later, we're thrilled to have you on this wacky Wednesday. Let's just go ahead and dive into it because tonight will be a little bit shorter. Not horribly, but a little bit. But let's just go ahead and dive into it. What upsets could we see? We have 4 potential upsets here. Remember what our criteria is, guys. Our criteria for an upset is a team that is a double-digit underdog that could win the game outright. That's going to focus in this criteria for us. We do a handful of those games, and then we do one top 25 team that might be a single-digit favorite that could lose. Like a couple weeks ago, we said Florida State. Florida State was only about a 3.5 point underdog to Clemson, and that was our potential upset, and it nearly was. Clemson only win that game by 6. So remember, those are our criteria as we go through. We could see tons of other upsets, but these are the ones that we see could be a possibility. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. Again, appreciate all you guys. Ianic Bond, I think I pronounced that right. Good to see you. Thank you very much. I'm glad you guys are a fan of this shirt. That's why we wore it. All right, let's get into our upset alert. Upset alert. Who is on it? Why are they on it? How far-fetched are we? How crazy are we? Tell us in the chat. Call us in a little bit. Tell us why. Let's see what happens. The first one, believe it or not, 2016 Cavs, you were on one of them. It is Ohio State on upset alert against Penn State. Oh, man, how big would this be? How big would this be? Not only would Penn State, if they upset Ohio State, jump back into the college football playoff discussion, Penn State's 13th in the country, they would easily drop into the top 6 or 7. Ohio State would lose control of the Big Ten East. They would have a loss to Penn State. Penn State would have a loss to Michigan. And so obviously if Ohio State beat Michigan, you have a 3-way tie at the Big Ten East and just creating chaos in that division and chaos in the conference. Now, why is this a potential upset? Why could Ohio State lose to Penn State? They're about a 16-point favorite here. Well, first off, Happy Valley, the power of Beaver Stadium. It's extremely underrated in my opinion. I mean, people underestimate it. If it's not a whiteout game, it doesn't matter. Well, not true. It's a very, very electric environment, although I do wish this was a night game for Penn State. I think it's a travesty, genuinely, that some of the biggest games of the week, both in the Big 12 and the Big 10, are their big noon kickoff or at 11 a.m. A couple weeks ago, Michigan-Penn State was an 11 o'clock game. This one is an 11 o'clock game. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's wrong. But so be it. Can't make that many excuses. If you're good enough to win, or a good enough team, you should be able to win anytime. But why is Ohio State on upset alert? Well, we mentioned this yesterday, guys, when we talked about the undefeated teams remaining and where they might want to be ranked on Tuesday. This is Ohio State's first true test when you really think about it. And I've got our criteria, boom, right here. Our criteria right here. Last night we were talking about this, guys. Ohio State is 7-0. They are the number 2 team in the country. They have won all games, every game they've played by at least 11 points. The lowest margin of victory was 11 against Notre Dame back in week 1. But right now they have 7 wins. Only 3 of those wins are against teams that have a record above 500. Notre Dame, who's like 4-3, Toledo, out of the MAC, Ohio State paid them to come to Columbus, and Rutgers, who's also 4-3. None of those are world beaters by any means. So you look at all that. They only have 1 ranked win, and that was back in week 1 against Notre Dame. Notre Dame, as we know, no longer ranked, so technically currently 0 ranked wins. Now they're going into a hostile Penn State environment against a good Penn State team. Sean Clifford's playing some good ball. They've got a great running back duo. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. The defense not too shabby under Manny Diaz. This game has the making to be close. And another thing, if you watched our Penn State-Ohio State video we put out today, if you haven't, go check it out. Go watch that prediction video. Maybe we picked Penn State to win an upset. Who knows? But what I'm saying there is that the last 5 meetings Ohio State has won. They've won 5 straight against Penn State. All of them have been decided by 13 points or less. So Ohio State's not really blowing Penn State out of the water, even in years where, Penn State was kind of down, per se. Ohio State wasn't just beating them into the dirt. They have not won a game against Penn State by more than 13 points each of the last 5 years. The game's in Happy Valley. Penn State is healthy. Penn State is riding their high after that big win over Minnesota. Watch out for an upset. Talk about shaking up the Big Ten. Talk about shaping up the college football playoff rankings. Talk about just chaos as we enter the month of November if Penn State manages to pull off this upset on Saturday. The marquee matchup to us, the game of the week this weekend, Ohio State is in fact on upset alert. All right, and hey, George Stites, good to see you, my man. I appreciate you. He's going to Tennessee, Kentucky. Should be a good one. It will be a good one, and that is our second potential upset alert. So, George, first off, thank you for being here, for all your support, and thank you for that beautiful segue into our second upset alert. You know, our guy Chandler last night got on the phone with us, and he said, you know, GE, he said, it might be a little far-fetched, but man, I love chaos. I love seeing, and he didn't say this, but basically I love watching the world burn. And just imagine if Kentucky were to upset Tennessee, and then Tennessee were to turn around the next week and beat Georgia, and then Alabama were to win the SEC championship over Tennessee, what that would do for the SEC, what that would do for the playoffs, just everything combined. Tennessee is on upset alert. Tennessee is on upset alert. Why? Upset alert. There we go. It's pulled up there. Why are they on upset alert? Because of that Georgia game. There is a potential that Tennessee could be overlooking Kentucky, a team they have dominated since like the 80s. I mean, it's been, 4 decades? I mean, they've dominated Kentucky. I think they've lost to the Wildcats 3 times since 1985. There's an opportunity for Tennessee to be like, yeah, it's Kentucky, whatever. We got Georgia next week, number 1 and number 3. The SEC East is on the line. Well, guess what? That game's not going to mean as much if they fall to Kentucky. Tennessee's playoff hopes, considering that game is also in Athens next week, could be gone if they lose to Kentucky. And Kentucky has the pieces to beat Tennessee. They really do. The defense is pretty solid, all things considered. The running game is starting to find some success. And the passing game, Will Levis has been phenomenal. I know he missed that South Carolina game, but when he is healthy, he's been playing some good football. And he's facing a Tennessee secondary that's abysmal, one of the worst in the country. One of the worst secondaries in the country. So yes, Tennessee is on upset alert. Yes, the game is in Knoxville. Yes, they're about 12, 13-point favorite coming into this game. But watch out for Kentucky. If Kentucky gets out to a fast start and forces Tennessee to start playing from behind, this game will come to the fourth quarter. If Kentucky gets off to a slow start and Tennessee jumps out to a quick 10, 14-0 victory, the game's over. Because not many teams are going to be built to come from behind and beat an offense like Tennessee. I know Alabama did it, nearly came back and won. They were down 28-10, nearly came back and won that game. A team like Kentucky is not built to do that. To beat Tennessee, you have to have an offense that can match them step for step. You have to have an offense that can match them step for step, and a defense that can hopefully get a stop or two in there. Kentucky has all of that. They cannot afford a slow start on the road at night. Tennessee is on upset alert because Kentucky has the pieces to do it, and they had the look-ahead factor. Watch out for this game. We have our prediction for this, guys, coming out tomorrow. Tomorrow, we will be breaking down Kentucky and Tennessee right here on the channel, so make sure you do not miss out on that prediction. My man George, I know you want to see about what we say about Kentucky. Share it with your friends. Anybody who else is a Tennessee fan, share it with your friends. Let's get this thing up there and rolling. See how many views we can get on this video. It'd be fantastic to talk about the Wildcats and the Vols. For me, the marquee matchup on Saturday night. Ohio State, Penn State during the day, Kentucky, Tennessee at night. And then a midday game between Oklahoma State and Kansas State. So really, you're kind of covered this Saturday. A little bit more of a lackluster week, but the timing works out great for all of these top 25 matchups. All right, 2 more games left on our upset alert. Here's one that might confuse some people, might disagree with. Upset alert number 3. How about USC? How about USC against Arizona? Yes, the Trojans are, in fact, on upset alert. And some people say, you are ridiculous. This is still a top 10 team in USC. They're about a 15 and a half, 16-point favorite, facing off against an Arizona team that's 3-4. How in the world could you have them on upset alert? Well, here's why. Yes, USC is coming off a bye week. Well, so is Arizona. Both teams are, well-rested. That's a huge benefit there. Both teams are well-rested. And one thing that I'm looking at here is the defense for USC. A defense for USC that was pretty much torched against Utah. So, a couple things to address here. Obviously, USC comes in this game off a bye week, but hurting after their first loss to Utah. One more loss for USC, whether it's to Arizona, whether it's to UCLA, whether it's to Oregon or someone in the Pac-12 championship game, assuming the Trojans get there, and their playoff hopes are done. They're still alive right now. One more loss, and they're gone. The desert, it's a very tough place to play. We know that. Teams typically don't play well at Arizona or Arizona State for some reason. Very interesting. And the one thing I'm looking at here is the passing game for Arizona. Their defense, not very good. They're giving up over 200 yards on the ground. They're giving up over 240 through the air. It's gonna be, to me, a high-scoring game. But I'm looking at Arizona's offense and what Jaden DeLora and the passing game and what they're doing. Arizona's averaging over 330 passing yards per game. They are lighting it up offensively. If you look at the numbers, Arizona State is averaging 9 yards less per game than USC. So they are about even when it comes to offense. USC's given up over 230 passing yards per game and over 150 on the ground. USC's defense isn't that good, guys. You take a deeper look into USC's schedule, everybody's like, oh man, look, they're 6-1. Their only loss was by 1 to Utah. Great. They weren't good against Stanford. They weren't. They beat Stanford by 13, benefiting from 4 turnovers against the Cardinal. They probably should have lost to Oregon State. Only beat them 17-14. Needed a late touchdown to win that game. They beat Washington State by 16. Wasn't by that many points. And they struggled early in that game against a good Cougars team. Then they lost to Utah on the road. Now they're going on the road to Arizona, a team that has nothing to lose whatsoever. Watch out for this game, guys, in Tucson. I could see Arizona pulling off a massive upset of the Trojans. So I think it's going to happen again. When we do these upset alerts, guys, we're not saying these games are going to be upsets. We're not saying that. But we are saying you need to watch out for them. Don't just immediately write it off because it's a top 10 team facing a team with a record below 500. Not going to happen, guys. I could see this game being a little bit closer than you expect. Paxton, you said, cover the spread or outright win? When we do these upset alerts, when the sirens are going off, our criteria, again, is a team that is a double-digit underdog that could win the game outright. So, yes, we were saying so far that there's a possibility Penn State could win the game outright over Ohio State. We're not saying it's going to happen, but it's not that far-fetched. Same with Kentucky, possibly winning the game outright over Tennessee. It's about a 12, 13-point underdog. Arizona over USC. And then our final upset alert, in college football, guy, I do want to give a shout-out to you. So glad to see you. Stay tuned, my man. You were talking about a 12-team playoff. We're about to preview that right after this. Do not miss the 12-team playoff picture. We're excited to do that. The last one here might catch some people by surprise. This is not a double-digit underdog. This is the top 25 team that could get upset as a single-digit favorite. Our man Anthony, all the way out in Pac-12 country, brought this thing up yesterday, and it was already on our radar. We already had it prepared. Washington State over Utah. And as you guys know, I'm pretty high on Utah. I really, really like this Utah team, but we're not biased here. We're going to sit there and tell you the facts and what we believe. And I will tell you this. Back in the preseason with Utah and Washington State, I said Washington State's good. They're sneaky good. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go win the Pac-12 or anything, but they've got the talent to do some damage. And I said they're going to either beat Oregon or Utah. They're either going to beat Oregon or Utah. They should have beat Oregon. So maybe I'm going to miss both of those, right? Maybe they don't beat Utah because they should have beat Oregon a couple weeks ago. They blew that game to the Ducks, an ultimate choke job. But it is a Thursday night game in Pullman. Utah rested as well, riding their high off that USC victory, facing a team in Washington State that, again, has nothing to lose, trying to continue to get wins for their bowl berth and the first full year under Jake Dickert. Very underrated defense that is winning the turnover margin significantly over their opponents. Cameron Ward playing some solid football right now. Again, those midweek games, crazy things happen. And I love this Washington State team. And I can easily see Utah kind of overlooking them. They're sluggish. It's late. It's like a 7 o'clock game out west. It's in the middle of a Thursday night. And Washington State pops them in the mouth early. And Utah's playing from behind. It's a quick 10, 14-0 deficit. And they're playing from behind, and they can't recover. That's one, guys. It's not a double-digit underdog. Washington State's about a 7-point, about a full touchdown underdog. But a game they could easily win outright. We called it back in the preseason. They're beating Oregon or Utah, not both. So I guess since they did beat Oregon, I guess we're going to say they're going to beat Utah. But I really feel like that the football gods were trying to give me that Oregon game, and Washington State just wouldn't let me have it. So unfortunate, but watch out for that game. So to recap, guys, our upset alert today on Wacky Wednesday. I'm very happy to see people are loving the banana shirt. This is why we wore it. This is why we bring it back. Maybe that should just become the official Wacky Wednesday shirt. Don't even try to switch it up. Just continue to bring it back. But to recap the upset alert, guys, Penn State over Ohio State. They're about a 16-point underdog right now. Kentucky against Tennessee. Night game in Knoxville Saturday night. Kentucky about a 12.5-point underdog. Watch out for that. Bit of a bold one here. Arizona over USC. The Wildcats, about a 16-point underdog, but they're at home in the desert. Got a great passing attack, and USC's defense, not that great. This has a chance to be a very high-scoring game out in the desert. And then, as we just mentioned, Utah and Washington State. Our man Anthony mentioned that one earlier. We want to address it again. It was already on our list, so watch out. If you're a Utes fan, you need to watch out tomorrow night. This one could easily be a loss and would ruin Utah's Pac-12 title hopes. Again, Utah's out of the playoff race, but they could still win the Pac-12, could still spoil the Pac-12 playoff race and the playoff hopes, depending on who they played in the championship game. A loss to Washington State, and it is gone because UCLA, USC, and Oregon only have one loss and are still very much in the mix. And Oregon doesn't even have a conference loss, so they are in really good shape right now. So there you go. Wow, there you go. Wacky Wednesday, baby. I love it. I love it. And we are about to preview a 12-team playoff as well before we open the phone lines for about an hour or so. Again, this will be a little bit of a shorter live stream, unfortunately, but still enough to get everything that we want in tonight. I want to give a couple shout-outs real quick before we jump into that. Let me see who else we have. Ionic Bond, I appreciate you. Good to see you, as I mentioned earlier. Do I think Iowa State will beat Oklahoma? The FPI sure does. They're giving Iowa State about a 65% chance to beat Oklahoma on Saturday. Ames is not an easy place to play, so I will give them that. Home field advantage, 11 a.m. I don't think they will. I think Oklahoma, I wouldn't say is turning a corner. Their season's lost, but I still think they're the better team, especially offensively. So I think Oklahoma is going to beat Iowa State, but that game's going to be very, very close. Probably closer than I think many of us thought it would be back in the preseason. D-Wayne, A&M is 3-4. It is terrible. It's embarrassing for A&M. They need to get rid of Jimbo, but they won't because they can't because he swindled them like we talked about last night. Ionic Bond, Tennessee, gives you 2019 LSU vibes. Interesting. As an Oklahoma fan who went to the 2019 Peach Bowl, that scares me. That's understandable. That's a good comparison, actually. You look at LSU. They were a team that in 2019, no one expected to make the national championship. No one expected to win the SEC or anything like that. But kind of burst onto the scene with a generational quarterback in Joe Burrow. Tennessee's got a guy like that in Hendon Hooker right now. One of the best offenses that we may have ever seen from LSU. I wouldn't put Tennessee in that category yet, but they're one of the best offenses in the country right now. Playing good ball. LSU had a bit of a better defense, I would say. I give them a little credit. They had a little bit better of a defense than Tennessee does right now. Not by much, but a little bit. Kind of came out of nowhere. And LSU just kind of caught everybody off guard. I think that's what Tennessee's doing. LSU won a close thriller against Alabama. That's what Tennessee has done. LSU didn't lose, though. LSU had a decent non-conference, a cross-division schedule. I can't remember who they played cross-division that year. I think one of them was Vanderbilt in Florida, right? I think it was Vanderbilt in Florida. So you draw Vandy in Florida, a good Florida team that year, but Vandy in Florida, Tennessee drawing Alabama, and who did they draw outside the West? Who was the other cross division? I'm blanking on that. They played Alabama. There's someone else they're playing out of the West. It's not A&M. It's not Arkansas. Auburn. Mississippi State. Ole Miss. I'm blanking on it. Someone LSU. Obviously. Wow. Yeah. They already played them. Jeez. Talk about a brain fart. Yeah, LSU. Killed them in Death Valley. So, and that was before LSU kind of felt like they turned a corner. I think that was a wake-up call for LSU. So I love that comparison, actually. It'll just be a matter of can Tennessee finish the job just like LSU did. Again, college football guy, good to see you. How about Michigan and Michigan State? Don't see that one being an upset. I'm going to be honest with you. I really don't. I feel very confident in Michigan this week. I know it's a rivalry game, and we talked about that in our video earlier this week. We said, hey, rivalry games, anything can happen. Michigan State has had Michigan's number these last few years, so you don't want to just downplay that. But the Spartans have been god-awful this year. They've been really, really bad. Michigan, while their strength of schedule hasn't been there, they've won convincingly when they've had to. I love Blake Corum. I think the comparison I drew back in the video was last year Kenneth Walker ran all over Michigan. I think it's going to be the exact opposite this year. Blake Corum for the Wolverines is going to run all over the Spartans. It's a night game in Ann Arbor at the Big House. I love Michigan in that spot, and I think they're going to kill them. I think Jim Harbaugh and the Wolverines are going to take out a lot of frustration on the Spartans, especially after what's happened these last few years. But very fair point. Great question. Dave, what's going on, Dave? Good to see you, my man. Good to see you, Dave, and glad to see you're here tonight. Same with Mike Myrick. Good to see you, Mike. Go Noles, baby. Mike's got us. I think he's going to get you to a bowl game, that's for sure. You should, Mike, heaven forbid, you should take easy care of Georgia Tech this Saturday. So that's going to be another win, another step closer to bowl eligibility. I really enjoyed watching the Noles this year. I feel like y'all have finally turned a corner. So, Mike, good to see you again. Dave, thrilled to see you here. Very, very happy to have you here. Let's see. He said, I got kicked in my bets this week. We didn't. We went 9-1. I hope you used some of our bets at least, Dave. I hope you were able to use some of those expert picks to your advantage, but I do feel that. It was a still kind of crazy week from time. Let's see. I think we're losing a little bit of signal, cutting in and out a little bit. Let's see. Paxton, is Jimbo tanking for money? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Here's the thing. No, I don't feel like I'll take that back. Some coaches probably would, right? Some coaches would probably be like, hey, look, I don't care. I'm cool just dropping this thing, losing. But I think Jimbo's got too much pride in that. I think he's got too much at stake here. His reputation's at stake. But let me tell you one thing. I love what Lane Kiffin said earlier today. He was like, we tried to keep DJ Durkin as our defensive coordinator. He goes, but we got outbid by Texas A&M. He goes, that seems to be a common theme with that program. And I think that's really funny that he said that because, obviously A&M was outbidding Alabama and many other programs for their players, whether before the NIL was legal or not. They were all over that, and I think what A&M has tried to do is they've tried to utilize money to build their program, and that's not how you build a program. Again, as we talked about yesterday, there's something to be said for five-star culture versus five-star talent. And if you've got a coach that doesn't really care, that doesn't know what the heck he's doing, but he's going to offer you $3 million, sure, I'll come play for you for $3 million. You'd be crazy not to. But guess what? The players are there for the wrong reasons. They're there just for the money. They don't care if we win or lose. I got $3 million in my pocket. So I'm fine. That's not how it needs to be. Jimbo has run that program into the ground with poor discipline, poor leadership, poor decision-making. I don't think he's tanking by any means because here's the thing, A&M's not going to fire him. A&M doesn't have that kind of money. No program's going to fire him this year or next year and pay him $75-something million for his buyout. No one's going to do that. Problem is he swindled. So that's what we were talking about last night. What does Texas A&M do? Do you cut ties and just suck it up and pay the money? And just say, God, this sucks, but here you go. Here's the money. Get out of here. Or do you continue to deride Jimbo Fisher knowing that he's going to continue to drive your program into the ground? You have to decide. Either cough up a bunch of money to get rid of him and hopefully get someone else in there. And whoever you hire, you're going to have to hire him at a discount, at least till you pay Jimbo off. Or Jimbo will keep you, keep sucking. Hopefully we'll rebuild in 10 years. It's a horrible situation for A&M, but one that they put themselves in. And I have to say, I do not feel any, sympathy towards them for that. Great question, though. All right, let's see here. Doggy says, I look like I'm on a green screen. No green screen. No green screen. If I had a green screen, I'd be doing something a little bit cooler than that, to be honest with you. I like our setup now. We're going to keep building it. We're going to keep expanding it and adding more stuff. But if I had a green screen, I'd make it a lot cooler than this. So yeah, but that's funny. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see here. Yeah, Dave, I agree with you. Pedal to the metal for sure over Michigan State. Eddie Rose, do I think Luther Burden will break out next year with Sam Horn at quarterback and Drinkwitz is open to give up play calling, which is really good? Yes, it is good that he's going to give up play calling because Eli Drinkwitz is an idiot. He no disrespect Eddie, but he's a horrible coach. Doesn't know what the heck he's doing. I'll be curious to see how long he stays at Missouri, to be honest with you. Luther Burden can break out if no one transfers. If they fire Drinkwitz so that he continues to run that program into the ground, their top recruits like Sam Horn and Luther Burden are going to leave. But I do think with a better quarterback and a better system, Burden could have a breakout year because despite how bad Missouri's been this year, Burden has been the lone bright spot for them. So I do agree with that. Let's see here. All right, let's see. All right, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get back to the chat here in a second, but I want to do what college football guy was talking about. This is for everybody, too. We're going to do this periodically over these next few weeks, especially once the playoff committee starts releasing their rankings starting on Tuesday. So keep in mind, next Tuesday, guy, we will be right here shortly after the playoff committee releases their first set of rankings. We're going to detail it. We're going to talk about what was good about it, what was wrong about it, who should be ranked higher, who should be ranked lower, and we'll talk about what a 12-team playoff would look like under their rankings right now. But here's what a 12-team playoff would look like under our rankings. We did this a few weeks ago, and College Football Guy asked this question last night. He said, hey, how does that work? How are those teams seeded? How is it structured? Things like that. Here's how it would look. And hopefully you guys can see this relatively well. I'm going to pull it up myself as well. So here's what we're looking at here, guys. A 12-team playoff based on our rankings, based on the Gridiron Expert rankings that we released back on Sunday night. So you look at this. How does it work? The top 4 highest-ranked conference champions get a first-round bye. All right? That's how it works. All 6 conference champions will make the playoff. So your 5 Power 5 conference champions will make the playoff, and then your highest ranked group of 5 champion will make the playoff. But that doesn't mean they're seeded 1 through 6. That's not how it works. So based on our rankings, we have Georgia at number 1. Georgia's clearly the 1 seed. We would say, for this example, we would say they're the SEC champion. We have Ohio State ranked number 2. Let's say they're the Big Ten champion. We have Clemson as the 3 seed, not because they're ranked 3rd in our rankings. Remember, Tennessee is number 3 in our rankings, but they can't win the SEC if Georgia does. So Clemson is the second highest. They are 4th, or no, I think they're 5th in our rankings, 5th in our GE top 25, but they would be the ACC champions. They get the 3 seed, and then, of course, the 4 seed would be Oregon, who we have at 6 in our rankings as the Pac-12 champion. So those are your 4 first-round byes: Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, and Oregon. All right? Look a little bit deeper at those first rounds. So that's how it works. The first round, guys, your 8, 9, 7, 10, 5, 12, 6, 11 games are all played on a campus, are all played on the campus. The highest seeded team gets to host that game on campus. So we'll just start in order, going from 5 all the way through 12. Tennessee would play Tulane. We have Tennessee ranked 3rd. They were not the SEC champions, but they were the next highest ranked team as an at-large. So Tennessee would be 5th, followed by Tulane at 12. They would play them in Knoxville because we have Tulane as the highest ranked group of 5 champion. We have Tulane slightly above Cincinnati as of right now. So they would play each other in Knoxville. The winner goes to play Oregon at a neutral site. Above that, you see TCU and Oklahoma State. So we get a rematch of that thriller, 2 overtime thriller from a few weeks ago. TCU is in there, guys, because we have them ranked 8th in our rankings. They were not the Big 12 champions. They are the Big 12 champions, but they were lower ranked than that of Michigan, who we had at 4th in our rankings. Alabama, who we had at 6th or 7th in our rankings, and so forth and so on. If that makes sense, how this works, right? So Tennessee we had at 3rd, but would be 5th in the playoff rankings because of how the conference race shaped up. Georgia winning it. Alabama would be 7th, so forth and so on. Michigan is 6th because they were an at-large. Utah is in there. TCU is the Big 12 champion, but they're the 8th seed. Because, yes, while they did win the Big 12, congratulations, they're in, but they were not above the likes of Tennessee, Michigan, or Alabama. So, again, those opening round games, your 8, 9, 7, 10, 6, 11, 5, 12, are all played on campus. That's how it's supposed to be structured. The remaining games would all be played on a neutral site. Okay, moving on. We kind of went through our little predictions, guys, just for fun, right? We just kind of loosely made these predictions. This isn't how we truly feel in its entirety. But the point I want to make with a 12-team playoff, I know a lot of people are against this. A lot of people think it would be bad for the sport. Look at how fun this would be, all right? So you would get a rematch between TCU and Oklahoma State. You get a rematch of that game. Maybe we see it in back-to-back weeks because maybe they play each other in the Big 12 championship. But regardless, you get a rematch between the Horned Frogs and the Cowboys right back in Fort Worth, right back at TCU. You would get to see Michigan and Utah. That'd be a pretty dang fun game. That'd be a fun one. Alabama, Wake Forest, two great offenses going up against each other. Wake Forest probably wouldn't have much of a chance, but you never know. The point I want to make here for a couple things. First off, we were discussing last night about a potential scenario where, whoever wins the SEC East is going to have a loss, possibly, in this scenario. So let's say Georgia does it, because that's what we have here. So let's say Georgia beats Tennessee. Georgia beats Tennessee. They're undefeated. Tennessee's 11-1. Georgia at 12-0 plays an 11-1 Alabama in the SEC championship game, and Alabama wins that. So now you have a 12-1 Alabama SEC champion, you have a 12-1 Georgia SEC runner-up, and an 11-1 Tennessee who did not play for a conference championship. In today's playoff format, where it's only 4 teams, guess what? Tennessee, despite going 11-1, despite beating Pittsburgh, despite beating Florida, despite beating Alabama, despite beating Kentucky, would be left out of the playoff. How ridiculous is that? A team that goes 11-1 in the SEC and maybe only has one close loss on the road to Georgia would be left out of the playoff in this year's format. How jacked up is that? How wrong is that? Now you make a 12-team playoff. Look what happens for Tennessee. They're the first team out from getting a bye week. They're the 5th seed and easily can make a run to the Final Four. Talking like college basketball terms here. Easily can make a run to those Final Four teams. How crazy is that? Tennessee would absolutely beat Tulane. Oregon, Tennessee would be a phenomenal matchup at a neutral site. 2 fantastic offenses, but we like Tennessee a little bit better, so send them to play Georgia. And then boom, now Tennessee's got a rematch against Georgia, looking to avenge their loss. This time it's on a neutral field. This is how it should be. This is how it should be. And I will make another point there. So obviously in the scenario that we made with Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, and this year, we wouldn't have to worry about with a 12-team playoff. Now, I want you to look again. Look at who's in our Final Four, just roughly, loosely prediction-based. It's number 1 versus number 5, number 2 versus number 6. Okay? Your top 4 teams, based on this model, Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, and Clemson, half of them aren't even in the semifinal. All right? So a lot of people go, it's inevitable. I mean, sure, add more teams in there. Add more teams that don't deserve to be there. You're still going to end up with the same teams. If the top 4, like last year, a couple years ago, were Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, Ohio State, you're just making them play extra games. They're going to have to face each other anyways. Not true. I think we could all agree that right now, anything can happen, but Michigan would probably beat Clemson. Michigan would probably beat Clemson right now at a neutral site. So boom, Clemson's out. Oregon, Tennessee, what a great game that would be. Regardless of who wins that game, what an awesome game that would be between Bo Nix and Hendon Hooker and those 2 offenses going up against each other. So even if Oregon won, you'd get a rematch of Georgia and Oregon back at a neutral site. Would we see a different result? Because clearly Oregon is playing much better football and is a much better team than what we saw in week 1. So you get teams that get their second chance at one another. You get a team that gets a chance to avenge a loss that maybe they had earlier in the year. And you clearly see, guys, the winner of this whole tournament is college football fans. The winner of this whole thing is us. We win with this scenario. We win with this playoff format. We win with what this could be. Again, this is based on our rankings. We will break down what the playoff committee's rankings could do for a 12-team playoff starting on Tuesday. We'll start talking about that. And I'm looking through the comments, guys. Someone said the BCS system would have been better. I was fine with the BCS. I really had no issues with it. I really didn't. I think there were never many years I had too many issues with the BCS rankings. But, the reason is because people all got butthurt about Alabama playing LSU in the national championship that one year. Everybody got upset when Alabama played LSU in the 2011 season, and then that was and the BCS kind of robbed Oklahoma State in a way. Well, Oklahoma State probably shouldn't have lost to Iowa State. You don't lose that, you're in the championship, and who knows what could happen. But here's the thing. Everybody was complaining about that. It's ridiculous that two teams from the same conference are playing for the national championship. We've already seen that twice with the playoff system. So guess what? What you were complaining about, you wanted expansion, you wanted a playoff system, we gave it to you, and you're still getting the same thing. So it wasn't a BCS issue. It's just how good these two teams are. Plain and simple. Alabama has played Georgia twice in the national championship since the playoff launched back in 2014. Don't really see many people complain about that, do we? So what's the problem? So, it's an interesting concept, guys, and we'll address it a couple times. College football guy, are they making all the New Year's Six bowl games playoff games every year when the 12-team playoff starts? Yes, to my knowledge, that is how it's going to be. Because obviously that's kind of how it is right now. Your semifinal, I don't know what they are this year. I can't remember, but sometimes the Rose Bowl is a semifinal game. So Alabama has won the Rose Bowl. Technically, they're Rose Bowl champions. That sends them to the national championship. So-and-so won the Sugar Bowl because that was the semifinal matchup. It sends them. So you're not going to have two Sugar Bowls, So yes, in theory, the second round games. Pull it back up here. The second round games are all going to be New Year's Six bowl games. Or second round and then your semifinal. There's 6 games there. Those would be your New Year's Six games. And then obviously you have your national championship. That is what is supposed to happen. And then obviously you would have all the other bowl games for the teams that don't make the playoff. You still have your Citrus Bowl and your Outback Bowl and your Liberty Bowl and, things like that. But yes, that is how it's supposed to be with the neutral site. So we would, have games in New Orleans, Dallas, out in Pasadena, Phoenix, Atlanta, and there's one more I'm blanking on. One other New Year's Six that I'm sure is Miami with the Orange Bowl. So there you go. That is how it's supposed to be. So yes, great question. All right, Paxton, good to see you. Dave, again, good to see you. Love this discussion, guys. Love the debate here. Jerry Turner, good to see you, my man. Happy to have you here. Syracuse just missed the cut on this 12-team playoff, man. So maybe if they keep winning, we'll have them in there. So and we'll do this, guys, probably every week from here on out, or every other week. That might be a little too much, But we'll kind of compare what our rankings are going to look like versus the playoff committees, and what a 12-team playoff for them would look like versus what it would look like for us. It'll be really fun to kind of have that debate and have some fun with that going forward here in these next few weeks. And then the playoff rankings are released next Tuesday, November 1st, first day of the month. Hit the ground running in the biggest month of the year for college football, year in and year out. All right, so having said that, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines for a second. We'll keep them open for about 30, 45 minutes, give or take. Again, it has to be a little bit of a shorter live stream tonight, but I want to get some of you guys' calls in there, whether we're talking about these playoff games, these upsets, or anything else that could happen this Saturday. We're anxious to get your calls and get some discussion going. Call-in number tonight, as always, is 501-777-5861. And we will pin it up there on the chat for everybody to see. Boom. That is our call-in number for tonight. Give us your call. Bring us your hottest takes. Bring us your best questions. Bring us your best discussion. Again, 3 to 5 minutes roughly per caller, since we are trying to get through as many people as possible tonight. Allow you guys to get as many people on the phones tonight. I know we had a couple of guys that did not get to call in yesterday because of that. So looking forward to it. But that is our call-in numbers pinned at the top of the chat for all to see right here as well. Let's get it going, and here we go. We got our first caller. Let me fix this camera. First caller, I believe it's Hunter. Hey, what's going on, Hunter? How you doing, man?
I'm doing amazing after that close fourth quarter choke it by Syracuse again.
Yeah, I'm sure our man Jerry's not too thrilled to hear that, but that was a thrilling. It was a choke job, I agree, in a thrilling game. So I'm sure you're doing pretty nice.
All right, well, like I always do, I ask you some questions, and let's get right into it.
All right, let's do it.
So about South Carolina, Beamer Ball has brought them back in the top 25 since 2018. Do you think they're going to stay there, or they're going to drop out by the end of the season?
I think they're there to stay, Hunter. I'm going to be honest with you. Let me pull up South Carolina's schedule for you real quick. It's very favorable going forward. They got Missouri this week. That shouldn't be much of an issue. Next week they got Vanderbilt. That won't be much of an issue. In theory, shouldn't be much of an issue. If South Carolina wins both of those games, they will be inside the top. Should be inside the top 20. And then they play, Florida, Tennessee, and Clemson to round out the year. There's a chance they could drop out by season's end because I don't think they're going to beat Tennessee. I don't think they're going to beat Clemson. Florida, for me, is a toss-up right now. It really kind of depends on the margin of victory, or margin of loss, I should say, against Tennessee and Clemson. But I think they're a top 20 team heading into that Florida game. And regardless, what Beamer's doing is unbelievable. To have him into the top 25 in just his second year after so many down years, to have him playing competitive ball again despite poor play from Spencer Sanders, it's a pretty dang good coaching job.
All right. Another thing, you didn't talk about this whole stream yet, but this is going to be a good game in my opinion. It's going to be Oklahoma State versus Kansas State, both ranked.
Yeah, that's going to be a fantastic matchup. We're actually going to have our prediction out for that on Friday. So we'll have deep analysis on Oklahoma State and Kansas State and our predicted winner. But what I like most about this game is obviously, Big 12 title hopes are still at stake, especially more so for Oklahoma State than Kansas State. But the Wildcats are still very much in it if they can get this win. And Manhattan is just a weird place to play. It's very underrated in terms of home field advantage. But I like Oklahoma State a lot. I love what Mike Gundy's doing. He's very dangerous as a road dog, as Dave knows. Oklahoma State's very dangerous as a road dog. Spencer Sanders is playing out of his mind. A fantastic bounce back season for him. So this is huge, and it's actually what people don't understand is it's big for the entire Big 12 because the Big 12 is going to be very fortunate if TCU and Oklahoma State meet in the Big 12 championship, both with one loss, because then I feel like you're guaranteed a team in the playoff, regardless of who wins that game. So if you are just a Big 12 fan, you need to be rooting for Oklahoma State. You need to be rooting for TCU to both continue to win out. And then if they're both, in the top 10, probably be top 6 by, December, the winner of that game goes to the playoffs. So talk about publicity for the conference, talk about stakes for the conference. So Kansas State is going to give them all they have. I'm curious to hear about the status of Adrian Martinez. That'll kind of sway me a little bit. But Oklahoma State's looking really good right now.
All right. I'm going to talk about my favorite team here for a little bit. What about, I want to hear your thoughts on Clemson's record about being 11th all-time in the all-time home winning streak.
Yeah, God, isn't that impressive? What's it up to now, Hunter? Like 38, something like that?
Yep, 38. We're number 2 all-time in the ACC and number 11th of all-time in the nation.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's impressive. And just a testament, really, to Dabo Swinney and what he's done. I think a lot of people, for some reason, kind of wrote off Clemson after last year. And the funny thing was, it wasn't even a down year for Clemson. They still won 10 games. That's what people don't understand. The good thing, Hunter, is I'm looking at the schedule. They're going to stretch this thing to 41. I don't see them losing to Louisville. I don't see them losing to Miami. And I don't see them losing to South Carolina. So they'll have it up to 41. They'll keep rising up those ranks. And you'll have a couple cupcake teams next year to keep adding that streak. Who knows when this thing is finally going to end. Because I think it's extremely impressive. People say 38, that's really not that much. Well, when you consider that teams only get, anywhere from maybe 5 to 7 home games a year, you're looking at, 5 to 7 straight years of not losing a home game. And that's extremely, extremely impressive. The last time they lost a home game, I think was back in 2016?
2016,
to Pittsburgh.
42 against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, against Pittsburgh, yeah. So I remember watching that game. Blew it, ironically, came through clutch for Pittsburgh. So, I'm very impressed. That's a hard thing to do regardless of how good your team is.
All right, final question here, and then I'll be on my way. But Arkansas versus Auburn, the battle of the mediocre teams. What's your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I really like Arkansas in that game, and we got our helmet back here supporting them. Auburn, here's the thing for Arkansas. It's one of those games where Arkansas on paper is by far the better team. They don't have coaching issues. They don't have a quarterback issue. Auburn's giving up over 200 rushing yards per game. So if Arkansas shows up there and does what they do best, and that is run the football, pound the rock, beat you up at the front of the line of scrimmage, then Arkansas is fine. They've won the game and it's good to go. But that's not what Arkansas does. Arkansas is going to find a way to make this game close. I saw someone tweet the other day that someone's like, Arkansas is going to blow them out. And some guy goes, yeah, but probably not. We're going to make every Auburn player look like a Heisman contender because that's what Arkansas typically does is the defense makes Auburn or whoever they play look like world beaters, even though they're not. So the Razorbacks are slight favorites, about 3.5, 4 points. I do think Arkansas wins the game, but it is going to be close.
All right. Well, that's all my questions I have for you this week. But thank you for answering them, and I'll be on my way.
Hey, I appreciate you, Hunter. Thanks so much for calling in, man.
That's fine. Anyway, see ya.
All right, that was our man, Hunter, 5657. That's his name in the chat. Love getting him on the phone, man. He knows his stuff. He knows his stuff, and he just gets quick and straight to the point. Like, I mean, it's phenomenal. He's just like, hey, how's it going? All right, let's talk. All right, let's do it. Let's go. It's fantastic. So, Hunter, I appreciate you calling in. I appreciate you and all your support and what you've done for the channel. Great questions, and congrats on the long winning streak with Clemson, man. That's phenomenal. All right, the lines are still open. I saw Sam was trying to give us a call. Sam, if you're still around, give us a call back, man. 501-777-5861. It's right there at the top of the chat. We'd love to get you on here for a few minutes, and we will go from there. And I think we're getting them on right now. Don't worry, guys. We'll cut off the calls in a little bit to make sure we get everything on the chat as well. All right, let me get him on here. Hey, what's going on, Sam? How you doing?
What's up, man? It's been a while.
It's been way too long. But good to hear from you.
What's up?
Yeah, great to hear from you. I got to talk, man. Your dogs are looking good. Are you the slightest bit nervous about next week?
Not really. I'm not looking ahead. I'll be at the game this Saturday. So I'm only like an hour away, so I'm pretty excited to go see it.
Oh, nice. Going down to Jacksonville. I love it. That's going to be fantastic.
Yeah. I live in South Georgia, so it's only like an hour away from here. So
Nice.
I usually like to make the trip.
That's great. Well, that's definitely that game alone is pretty high on my college football bucket list. So I'm looking forward to hearing how it goes.
Yeah, if you want to go to it though, you probably got to go to it pretty soon because there's a lot of talk about it moving to home and home, which I'm really not a fan of. I think that's a very special tradition that should not be touched. But apparently, there's a lot of talk that it could go home and home really soon, which is unfortunate. But I'm going to be enjoying it while it's still there.
Hey, absolutely, man. Go out there and have yourself a few cocktails while you're at it.
Yeah, I will.
So what we got? What are we talking about today, my man?
We could talk about the Georgia game, or we could just talk about like the SEC in general. That's our expertise, or my expertise at least. I know you're Razorbacks. So, you think the Dogs covered? It's 22.5.
Yeah, that actually wasn't even one of my picks for the week, but yeah, I just don't see how Florida can hang with them. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't either. They only had a touchdown last year. I mean, Anthony Richardson's a little bit better, but I mean, he's been pretty erratic as a passer, and Florida's strength is running the ball, and that plays right into Georgia's defense. So,
well, that's the problem.
They have some mistakes like they had against Missouri. I mean, I don't think they're going to score more than 10 points.
I think you nailed it right there. I'm looking at that, and I always joke with people. I said teams that are elite, like a Georgia and Alabama, especially teams that are consistently good, you can't run against them. In Georgia, you definitely can't run against. For some reason, people haven't figured that out. And you're right. For anyone to think that Anthony Richardson is going to go out there and have himself a field day running the ball, it's ridiculous to think that. Kirby Smart's going to have that thing locked down. He's not a good passer. They can't run. And you look at last year, Florida was doing a pretty decent job. They were going to take that game into halftime, only down, 7 or 3? I mean, it was a pretty close game.
Yeah, so 3 minutes left in the half, maybe 4. I was at that game, too. It was only 3-0. Like, our defense was dominant, but, like, we weren't able to do anything offensively. and we had 3 straight turnovers, and it was 24-0 at half. It was a span of 2 minutes and 9 seconds where we had, I think, a fumble, and Nolan Smith helped force an interception, and then Kobe Dean, 15 seconds and a half, had a pick six. It was like the most insane 2 minutes of football I think I've ever watched. I mean, it was quite a run. That defense was amazing.
For me, I mean, I know statistically people would disagree, but I think that's probably the best defense that I've ever seen in college football.
Yeah, I mean, considering the modern offenses, I mean, sure, like statistically there might have been some like 2011 Alabama, or even you can go even back to the 90s or whatever. But considering, I think the offenses in today's game, it's got to be up there as one of the best, if not the best.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, I've heard people talking about Miami back in the '90s. They were pretty dominant. Yeah, but it's amazing. 2011 Bama, that's still relatively recent, but that's still over 10 years ago. The game has just evolved so much since then.
Yeah, true. And that was Kirby's defense in a sense too. It's kind of crazy thing.
Right. Yeah, that's even more impressive. Just kind of, I mean, I feel like as to his legacy and what he's been able to do. Yeah, but I'm right there with you. I remember watching that game live and just just being shocked. I'd never seen a team implode that bad. In such a short amount of time. So, and I think that's not necessarily we're going to see some sort of implosion in such a short amount of time this Saturday, but I just don't see Florida having much offensive success at all. So 22.5. Someone said I was talking to someone earlier ago. They go, that's pretty high. That's actually when I said, is it? I said, I feel like it could easily be higher.
I think it's the highest it's ever been for this game, at least for Georgia being favored. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I can't find a line that was ever higher than that. So.
Yeah, I feel like they easily could have made it higher though. Cause, I mean, I know Florida's still a team that's above 500, but I feel pretty good about Georgia having a big day on Saturday.
Yeah, it should be a good day. Florida will treat it like their Super Bowl. I mean, they don't have much else to play for, so I expect a good effort out of them, but I don't think they're going to be able to do much offensively. So I'll say like maybe 35-10. Maybe they'll be like similar score to last year, 34-7. I don't think they'll score more than 10 points.
Yeah, I think I personally would be surprised if they did. I would be shocked if Florida was able to put that much. 2 touchdowns would be a shot if they could do that on Georgia's defense.
Yeah, I mean, that would be surprising.
Yeah, but so I got to ask you, Sam, and for that, I'm going to give you a shout out real quick. For those of you that don't know, Sam, good friend of mine, he, runs all college football on Instagram. So if you're on Instagram, go check him out. It's at allcfb. Is it the largest college football page right now?
I mean, I wouldn't say it is because of the network pages. Like, there's ones owned by On3, like Elite College Football, the ESPN account, the Fox account. But, like, in terms of, if you take, like, major networks out of it, I mean, I'd say it's probably the biggest.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't count the major networks. That's not very fair to conclude that. So.
I don't really like to count them either.
Yeah, I don't think it's fair to count them. So.
It's up there.
Yeah, so he's got some great content over there, guys. Nonstop content. So go check him out. But he's a big SEC guy, as we know. So Sam, I'll ask you. Who has been? This will be a fun question, real quick, and then we'll probably take another caller. But your biggest surprise, I guess, from the SEC so far, and then biggest disappointment.
Surprise? I mean, I could go with South Carolina because them rattling off like 3-4 straight, whatever it is, since they got crushed by us for like 50 points is pretty amazing. But it's hard to not go with Tennessee, just considering like most people peg them going to like 8-4, 9-3, and at worst it looks like they might go 11-1. So I mean, what a fantastic job Josh Heupel has done in only his second year. It kind of reminds me of what Kirby Smart did in his second year at the Dogs, having that big jump in year 2. So, yeah, I'd say Tennessee probably is the biggest surprise, just considering how much they went above what many people expected. And then disappointments, I mean, A&M, I'd say Arkansas and A&M, but A&M having a losing record at this point, I mean, kind of hard not to go with them right now.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And it's frustrating as a Hog fan. We had an opportunity to beat A&M, should have defeated A&M, and they'd be 2-5 right now.
Yeah, I mean, that feel, I've never seen that in my life, go off top of the crossbar, I think. Is that what happened?
Yeah, the very top part of the upright, I mean, the very tip of it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I've never seen that in my life. So So that was like, wow, you see something new every time.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, I think Arkansas definitely should have won that game. That was surprising.
yeah. And
I put Arkansas in there too because like I feel like they should have won that game. But I still think A&M's probably the bigger disappointment. Like being preseason number 6, losing to App State, having a losing record. I mean, it just seems to all be not going very well down there.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think A&M by far is the biggest disappointment. I mean, and I feel like a lot of people, they jumped on the A&M hype train too early. I was never that high on Texas A&M. Never felt
Yeah,
good about them.
I think you said this before, but I was circling 2023 for that team, considering that freshman class would be older and they bring in another elite recruiting class. I think 2023 was the year to look forward to for the Aggies, but after everything that's going down right now, I'm not so sure. But I never really had the highest of expectations for them this year, but maybe even went below what I expected.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and that's what a lot of people they jumped the gun on the recruiting class. A&M signed a good class. They still brought a lot of good guys in this year. I agree.
Yeah.
2023 is probably the year that things could take off. Now you do worry about the culture and the mindset of this team going forward.
Yeah, the culture is one thing, but what Jimbo's got to hire a play caller. I mean, simply like his offense is so outdated. It's just not getting it done, no matter how many talented recruits he has.
You're right, and that's the thing. How do you? I mean, I know it's very hard to make a mid-season change. You really can't do that, but to continue to be that stagnant. You bring in a guy like Max Johnson. Everybody thought he would kind of be the starter. Didn't even get the starting job. Haynes King got it back. Then you drop him back, and the fact that you've played this carousel of quarterbacks, and one thing that does crack me up is a lot of people were talking about Aeneas Smith, saying that if he hadn't gotten hurt, the offense would be fine, and I strongly disagree with that because they were doing nothing when he was healthy. So I don't think one player completely made or broke A&M this year.
No. I mean, it's not the players. It's simply just the coaching right now, especially on offense. I mean, if they could. I mean, you see what Tennessee's doing with much less talent. If you think about it, just look at the star ratings on a lot of those guys. I mean, it's all about coaching. If they can get the right guy in there to call plays, that offense could really turn up in 2023. But I think it's a lost cause this year. But we'll have to see what Jimbo does there. I mean, there's definitely a lot of potential.
No, I fully agree with you. I think the potential is there. The recruiting class is there. You just need someone in there to coach these guys. We've said it time and time again. I think people get tired of us hearing it. There's something to be said for 5-star culture versus 5-star talent. You can bring in a guy that is a 5-star whatever, but if you don't have the right coaches in there to build them up and to develop that talent, you're never going to go anywhere.
You got to have both to be a national title contender, and that's what teams like Ohio State, Bama, Georgia, Clemson have. You got to have both. They have really good culture. That's something A&M just got to figure out.
Yeah, could not agree more. And it'll be very interesting to see the off season for what happened in College Station. What happens on the off season? What hires are made? What players transfer out? It's going to be very interesting.
You got to wonder, how many guys are going to leave, after how this season went, not being happy, or if a lot of them will end up sticking around. If Jimbo can keep a lot of those guys, I think that would be a big win.
I agree. Yes, yeah, maintaining the team because of what the potential of what 2023 can bring. That's what he's got to do. But if you lose too many guys, it all comes crumbling down, and so will Jimbo in a few years. So, no doubt about it. Well, Sam, I think we're getting some other people on the line, so I'm gonna let you go. Man, I appreciate you calling in, man.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for calling.
Absolutely, we'll have you back on here for sure. Absolutely.
Peace out.
All right, that's our man Sam. Always appreciate him. Great page over at All CFB, at All CFB over on Instagram. Love the content that he's been producing there since 2016, I think. So it's been going on for a while. He's absolutely killing it. So Sam, thank you very much for calling in, and great talk about the SEC. We'll take one or two more callers if we have them. If not, we'll drop it. We'll hit the chat before we close things off tonight. But yeah, man, what a wild year it's been in the SEC. To kind of continue to piggyback off what Sam was discussing. We have seen a lot of surprises. He said Tennessee was a major surprise, and I fully agree with him on that. I think LSU would be a major surprise as well. I don't think many people thought that the Tigers would do much this season. 7-5, 8-4, maybe 9-3. A lot of people were down on Brian Kelly immediately after the loss to Florida State, and LSU's bounced back in a big way. They crush Ole Miss in Death Valley. Jaden Daniels kind of starting to hit his stride. They actually have a very underrated victory over Mississippi State that I don't think people are talking about enough. So LSU, is looking good. And next week, so November 5th, is going to be a huge weekend for college football, guys. Not only will we have Georgia and Tennessee, that game determining who wins the SEC East, but Alabama and LSU very well could determine who wins the SEC West. Because Alabama, of course, already has a loss. LSU has 2, but only 1 conference loss. If LSU somehow upsets Alabama in Death Valley, could you imagine there's a possibility you could see LSU and Tennessee in the SEC Championship in a year we all thought it would be Alabama and Georgia again. There's an opportunity for you to see an LSU-Tennessee rematch in Atlanta. So, it's not out of the question, guys. So I feel like they're quite a bit surprised. I agree with Sam about A&M. We've talked about A&M tonight. We've talked about them yesterday, about how bad they've been, how bad the management has been, and how, unfortunately, it does not seem to be getting any better for Jimbo Fisher and his team. So, very, very interesting to see what happened this offseason down in College Station. All right, let's hit the chat a little bit. I want to address some of the questions through here. Let's see here. Love everybody's talking about I got the LSU helmet. Yeah, it's inverted, Dave. This is my right hand, so that is Arkansas. That is LSU. So I'm looking at it. It's inverted. It screwed with me a little bit, but I like it. A lot of people talking about the I like it. I like the Big 12 content. Hey, there he is. Matthew Hazelhorst is here. What's going on, Matthew? Good to see you, man. Glad you're able to pop in tonight. I know we missed you yesterday. We missed you and Dave yesterday, but I'm glad you guys are both here. I'm sorry, Matthew, for the loss last week, man. I know you were in attendance. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed the atmosphere and enjoyed the game. I know a big roller coaster, right? You're at the highest of highs when you're up 28-10 and then just tanked. And obviously I attribute, I'm sure you do too, a lot of that to the quarterback injuries. Defense just kind of choking there in the second half. But still, I'm glad you were able to make it down there. Glad you got to witness the game. And hopefully, for your sake, the Wildcats bounce back in a big way against Oklahoma State. Again, that we were talking about earlier, has the opportunity to be one of the best games of the week, as Dave is saying, as Jerry is saying. Oklahoma State, K-State will be awesome. But also, the fact that it's huge for the Big 12, that if Oklahoma State loses, TCU is now the lone team to make the playoff in the Big 12. If Oklahoma State wins, you have an opportunity to not get both teams in there. You're not getting 2 in there, but you've got 2 options. And so if you're just a Big 12 fan, you're probably rooting for Oklahoma State. But obviously as a Kansas State fan, you're far from it because you still want to make that Big 12 championship game, something that's entirely possible if they can upset the Cowboys. So I love it. Matthew, great to see you, though. They were talking about Adrian Martinez, and he said, if Adrian plays, it's going to be worse than if Howard plays. He says, coming off an injury, he's going to need to find confidence to run again. Howard has a better passing game. Even though he has a wonky run, he can make those first down cuts. And I will agree with you, Matthew. I will tell you, I am a big fan of Will Howard. There were years when Skylar Thompson would be going down. Multiple times they'd throw in Will Howard. He did a pretty good job managing that offense. Clearly a much better passing game than Adrian Martinez. We knew that, though. We talked about how Martinez is such a great runner, but not so much a passer. I think he had like 900 yards on the year heading into that TCU game, so not so much there. Howard looked really solid for the majority of that TCU game. I know he made a few mistakes in there, but looked pretty solid. And for a guy that has spent the majority of his career as a backup, he's been called on a lot. And I agree with you. You worry about Martinez. If he's good to go, mentally, how will he be to run and possibly get hit in the head, to slide and take a risk of getting a hit? And that's something that honestly, not only is it important to see what happens with the health of those players, but Chris Kleiman's going to have to make a very big decision too. If Martinez isn't giving the offense the spark they need offensively early against Oklahoma State, does he pull the trigger and try to give him a spark more so through the air with Will Howard, also considering how poor Oklahoma State's secondary is. Keep that in mind too. Cowboys do not have a good passing defense. So are you going to try to utilize the running quarterback more? Do you see both quarterbacks play, or do we just ride Will Howard the whole way and hope that he can air it out and exploit that weak defense? So a very interesting storyline to watch heading into that game. But Matthew, good to see you here. Justin Hardy, good to see you here as well, my man. Happy to have you here. Roll Tide, he says, as always. You and Mike, man, I tell you, I love it. I love you guys representing your teams. Let's see. Yeah, LSU and I was saying LSU and Bama play next week. So not this week, obviously. Next week's huge though. Next week, the 5th, Georgia and Tennessee play each other during the day. Alabama and LSU play each other at night. So next Saturday, the 5th, assuming everybody takes care of business, assuming Tennessee doesn't lose to Kentucky, assuming Georgia doesn't lose to Florida, next Saturday is going to be a huge, huge, huge day in the SEC where you're going to have potentially have a top 3 matchup in Georgia, Tennessee, and a top 15 matchup in Alabama and LSU. Both of those potentially determining who wins each respective division. So that's a huge day, not just for college football, but for the Southeastern Conference. So that I'm very excited for the first Saturday of November. That's going to be fun. We are getting a call from North Carolina. We'll make this the last caller for the night. How about that? So whoever's calling in gets the honor of being the last. Well, boom, it's the man himself, college football guy. How's it going, man?
Not too bad, man. How you been?
I'm doing great. I always say on days like today, I can never complain.
Man, I tell you what, it's been what a crazy season so far. It just seems like it's, we thought last year was a crazy season. Well, this season seems to might top that. You never know. Who had ever thought that you could have the Big 12, Pac-12? I mean, there's so many potential contenders out there to make the college football playoff, and it's also nice to see, not so many not so many top contenders to where it's like, usually Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. It really is wide open this year, and it makes it more for a much fun season and everything. Wouldn't you agree?
I entirely agree. I'm a big proponent, man, of parity. We are always looking for parity in college football. And I think you made a fantastic point. We still have those elite contenders, your Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, guys like that. But the fact, for the last few years, it has really felt like a 2-conference race for the playoff. It has felt like the SEC and the Big Ten, which are, to me, the 2 top conferences. But as you mentioned, it's fantastic to see that the Big 12 has not just TCU in the running to make the playoff, but potentially Oklahoma State as well. The Pac-12 still has multiple teams, Oregon, USC, UCLA, all in the running to maybe make the playoff. Clemson is in the ACC, their lone chance, but still in there. You've got Michigan, you've got Ohio. So the conference races are intense. There's 4 spots up for grabs, and we still have 5 Power 5 conferences that are all at play and getting those spots. So it's really, really fun. And like I said, seeing the surprises of a team like Tennessee, who hasn't been this good probably since the late 90s, a team like Oregon, a team like TCU, it just makes college football, for me, a whole lot better.
Absolutely, and it makes it into to where you just close your eyes. It's like, it's Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama, and then just somebody else who's going to get blown out. You really can't see that this year. Like you said, the top 5, 6 teams, you can make an argument for any of them to win the national championship this year because the top 3 teams, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, have all shown flaws and shown greatnesses, week in and week out. I mean, they all have their Jekyll and Hyde, it seems like this year, to where it's not really been one dominant team week in and week out like we've been used to seeing these past few years.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, again, it all comes down to parity. There hasn't been what has appeared to be a truly dominant team. In the past, like last year, it was Georgia. You looked at Georgia and you're like, is anybody going to beat them? Yes, they lost to Alabama in the SEC championship, but they just looked dominant from start to finish and won the whole thing. But I mean, this year, we were talking about criteria last night. I know you were on the stream last night about the teams that were still undefeated. Georgia is the number 1 team in the country, but they did not look good against Kent State. They did not look good against Missouri. They have shown weaknesses.
Right.
Ohio State, they're dominant. They haven't played anybody. They haven't played anybody good. Penn State's going to be their first true test. Tennessee has looked great. Their defense is really bad. Michigan hasn't played anybody. Clemson is showing a lot of weaknesses. So they're great, but like you mentioned, any of these teams could beat anybody. And I'll pull it back up for people to look at for a while. That 12-team playoff scenario based on our rankings. You look at those teams.
And that's that's another thing I want to kind of jump on and talk about. I'm so glad they're doing the 12-team playoff and everything now. Like you said, it kind of gives makes it a lot more exciting for us college football fans. Also, as well, it's good to see that a lot of the campuses now will host some of these college football playoff games because some of those students aren't able to get off campuses to go see those games, which is great to see. And then probably the biggest thing for me, which I'm happy to see, especially with the New Year's Six bowl games, is we won't see any more, hopefully, players sitting out of those bowl games. I've been getting sick and tired of players sitting out that just focus on the NFL. I mean, they're pretty much just quitting the team. And, with the 12-team playoff coming back now and making the New Year's Six bowl games relevant, which, you can't really, the players won't have the excuse now, like, oh, it's not the playoffs or national championship, so I'm just going to focus on the NFL. And that's why I'm kind of happy with the 12-team playoff, making the Year 6 Bowl relevant, especially since they've always been relevant for years in the past now, but of course, they seem to have lost their meanings, especially to some of the players that have been sitting out. But since there are now quote-unquote college football playoff games, not only are they relevant because it's a playoff game, but they kind of bring back the importance and the tradition of the importance of it.
I love that point. I really, really do. You're exactly right. It's really frustrating, and I've been on that for a while when players opt out of these bowl games. I'm not even a fan of players opting out of the minor bowl games. Players that miss the Liberty Bowl or the, Outback Bowl. I'm not a fan of players doing that. But the New Year's Six bowl games, people have basically taken the notion of if it's not a playoff game, if my team does not have a chance to win or play for a national title, I'm not going to play because why would I risk getting hurt in a quote meaningless game when I am about to go make millions of dollars? My whole argument with that,
exactly.
And what's frustrating with that is like, sure, I get that concern from a personal level. You are a player that could be a first-round draft pick. Winning your team the Sugar Bowl doesn't do you any good. But it's a pride thing. You get to add a trophy, but you're not winning a national championship. My problem is, what about your other teammates? What about your coaches? What about your fans? You are preventing these programs from winning. I look at the game like last year. Pittsburgh played Michigan State in the Peach Bowl, and Kenny Pickett sat out. Jordan Addison sat out. I believe he sat out. But Kenneth Walker sat out. So the star quarterback for Pittsburgh was not playing. The star running back for Michigan State didn't play. Handful of other starters on both sides of the ball didn't play. The game itself loses its luster. A game that was supposed to be a great top 10 showdown loses its top 2 stars. And so not only are you putting your teams at disadvantage, but the game isn't even that intriguing anymore. It's very, very selfish and very frustrating. So you're right, with a 12-team playoff, those teams get in there. It's not even just adding value to the New Year's Six. It adds value to all of those games. You're playing, and I'll pull it back up again, you're playing so many playoff games. You've got the 4 quarterfinal games, 4 opening round games. So you've got 8, 10, 11 games there where you're not going to see anybody opt out because they know they have an opportunity to do something great.
Right, like we were talking about, it makes the games a lot more relevant and make it a lot more exciting. I say, I'll talk about one more thing. I'll let you go. I just want to talk about my Tar Heels for a minute. At the beginning of the season, I wasn't too high on them. A lot of people kind of writing them off because of from last year. And, I know that, they had a down year. I didn't have that much expectations as well. But, I figured that they would improve from a 6-6 season. But I'll tell you what, but I thought it was going to be the opposite way around where, the defense was going to look so great. And then the offense would be so young, might pick up a little bit, maybe get better as the season go on. I tell you what, it's been the exact opposite, and it's been kind of similar to what it was a couple of years back to where the offense has been great and the defense has been slouchy. I tell you what, Drake May, I've been impressed with him and how well he's done, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but North Carolina probably is the best team and probably right now should win the rest of their games. Maybe, outside maybe going on the road with Wake Forest, that's going to be a tough one, but could be the team that could win the Coastal, which is, I was not part of my expectations, which is
So for a team that was, expected to somewhat bounce back to maybe better than 6-5 to almost win the Coastal, that's pretty good bounce back season. But of course, a lot of that has to be played into because of, the expectations of Miami and Pitt that were supposed to be probably the two co-favorites you could say not doing so well this year, which is really kind of a shocker as well to say as well, which has kind of opened up North Carolina to be in the front runner seat and such. But still not given in the Coastal. The whole ACC is down, as you and I both know anyway. It's the worst conference. And it really is anybody's game. Anybody can beat anybody on a given day, maybe outside Clemson, because it's just that terrible. So, but fingers crossed. Hopefully Carolina hopefully will win out. But at least they'll be able to afford one loss since all the rest of the Coastal teams are at least two or more losses by now at this point. So, but of course you never know. We'll have to wait and see.
No, you're exactly right. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you go, and I will address that right here on the chat. I have a lot to say on North Carolina.
All right. Take care and have a good night, my friend.
Hey, appreciate it. You too. You too. Appreciate you. All right, that was our man, college football guy, all the way, man, from North Carolina, big Tar Heels fan. And he's going to be, unpin that. He's going to be our last caller of the night. And I appreciate you calling in, man. Great discussion and great points, too. And I told him I was going to talk about North Carolina. He made great points about UNC. A team that was not really having many expectations. And I like what he said from a fan, right? Got a guy in North Carolina, a team in North Carolina, where they thought that the offense, you lose a guy like Sam Howell, lose some big-time playmakers. Offense is going to take a major step back. And so the defense is going to carry him. And I thought the same thing, too. I thought the offense, not really sure. Quarterback questions coming into the season. Gene Chizik, though, comes in to take over as defensive coordinator. The defense should be okay. As he said, it's been the exact opposite. The offense has looked dang near unstoppable. Drake May has been unbelievable at quarterback. His touchdown-interception ratio is unreal. I think he only thrown one or two interceptions. He's been great care of the football for a first-year starter. The offense has been electric, but the defense has been atrocious. But like he was saying, North Carolina, no one really expected them to win the Coastal Division. People thought Miami would be much better than they were going to be. And this is a team that had, 8 turnovers against Duke at home. So Miami was supposed to be a lot better. They have failed miserably in year one under Cristobal. Pittsburgh, the reigning ACC champions. No one thought they'd be as good as they were last year. They lost Kenny Pickett and so many other guys. But you bring in a guy like Keaton Slovis. You have a Israel Abonaconda. You've got guys like that. They have fallen short. Virginia Tech has done nothing. Virginia has been terrible. I thought Virginia would be good with Brennan Armstrong coming back, paired with a good offensive mind and Tony Elliott. They have been god-awful. So it has been the North Carolina show. North Carolina and Duke, believe it or not, have probably been the top 2 teams in the Coastal. And as he mentioned, UNC can afford one loss. He was talking about how the rest of the schedule looks pretty favorable with the exception of the road game at Wake Forest. Even if UNC drops that game, they're probably going to be okay. They're still probably going to win the Coastal. And I'm going to tell you right now that if it is a Clemson versus North Carolina ACC championship game, I think North Carolina gives them a tougher test than people realize. I think that offense from North Carolina is going to give Clemson's defense a tough test. We saw the Clemson defense struggling against Syracuse this last Saturday. They really were. They were, for the majority, probably the first half, 3 quarters, they were struggling to stop the pass from Garrett Schrader. They could not get off the field on 3rd down. And I believe that North Carolina could do the same thing to Clemson. I'm not saying they're going to win that game, but we'll be able to give them a lot of trouble in that game. So watch out for North Carolina, guys. An unexpected contender in the Coastal, by far the weakest division within that conference. The Atlantic had Clemson, Wake Forest, NC State, Florida State, Syracuse, and the Coastal's over here with nobody. So North Carolina has definitely benefited from that. But you still can't take away from what Mack Brown has been doing so far this year. So great call-in, college football guy, great points, and I'm really genuinely very excited to see North Carolina and how they do over the remainder of this year and would love to see them win the Coastal. A few years ago, we were kind of hoping to see Clemson face North Carolina in the ACC championship. We didn't get that. We did not get that game. Maybe we will finally get it this year. And again, anything can happen. Clemson is very, very vulnerable. Great points. All right, I'm going to hit the remainder of the chat, guys. I want to make sure I get to everybody's questions and comments, and then we will wrap things up tonight. Let me see here. Let us see. So Matthew, I asked you how you gave. Yeah, he says he was no one. He says no one, all caps, talked about how in the second half the defense folded. The Kansas State defense folded. The defense held all 3-star players of TCU in the first half, but all the score for TCU mirrored defensive injuries. And he's right. The defense just folded. I think the major storyline in that game was obviously the injuries to Kansas State's quarterbacks, but they did a great job. I mean, from Kendra Miller to Max Duggan to Quentin Johnston, you're right. They did a fantastic job bottling that up. We were talking about that before the game. In our preview video, we said TCU has one of the best trios in the country, and Kansas State made them a non-factor. I mean, to go up 28-10 on the road in a game like that is extremely impressive. And then to allow 28 unanswered, obviously that's a big problem. So, I mean, and you can't, while the offense may have become stagnant, while they may have struggled with the loss of Martinez and a little bit of inconsistency from Howard, things like that, you can't base it all on that offense and those injuries. The defense played a major role in that. So I fully agree with you there, and a fantastic point. As he said, Kansas State lost 3 to 4 key defensive players, and many were banged up. The last half just mostly had TCU playing the backup defense, and that's my biggest concern for the Oklahoma State game, not the quarterback position. Ian, you're right. You got to hope that your offense can get healthy because Oklahoma State's got a pretty dang good offense too, one that I don't think enough people are talking about either. Spencer Sanders has had such a phenomenal bounce-back year, doing a great job of taking care of the football. And no one really expected that either. The Oklahoma State almost made the playoff last year, loses so much on both sides of the ball, and I was like, geez, I mean, Sanders has some decent wide receivers, relatively unproven, but decent. How are they going to bounce back from that? And then this team might take a bit of a step back, and if anything, Oklahoma State has looked better. The defense, by no means better than what they were last year, but they're still winning. Cowboys are still winning. Lone loss to TCU in a game they probably should have won when they were up by 17 points. So, fantastic point there. The Oklahoma State offense not going to be easy, and you got to hope your team is 100% defensively if you want to beat the Cowboys. Love that point there. Love that point. Robert and Dave making a little wager. Robert and Dave, $250 down. Woo! Wow. I love it. I love it. Yeah, Dave, we were talking about that yesterday. Ole Miss is a fraud. That was actually the exact word we used yesterday in our live stream, Dave, was fraudulent. That Ole Miss was an absolute fraud, and they were finally exposed in Death Valley. Ole Miss was never that good to begin with, and I think they're going to be they'll probably be A&M this Saturday, probably going to get past them because of how bad A&M is right now. The players are suspended left and right, but Ole Miss still has Arkansas and Fayetteville. They've still got Alabama. They've still got Mississippi State. I'm going to tell you right now, out of those three, they're losing 2 of them. So after a 7-0 start, I think the best they can probably get is 9-3 probably, in my opinion. Some say no, they're going 11-1. They're not beating Bama. Come on, I actually don't think they're going to beat Arkansas. As bad as Arkansas's defense is, and it is bad in Fayetteville, senior night for the Razorbacks. I think Arkansas could get a win there because I think Arkansas's offense could actually match Ole Miss step for step because the Ole Miss defense is not any good at all. LSU torched them. If you look at the box score, Auburn torched Ole Miss offensively. Auburn was putting up a lot of yards. Tate Bigsby was having a big day. Auburn just didn't have the defense either to stop Ole Miss. We mentioned Auburn's giving up over 200 rushing yards per game. That's a major reason I like Arkansas so much this Saturday. But Arkansas could run all over Ole Miss again too. Home crowd on their side. Give me the Razorbacks unless something crazy changes between now and then. So great points there. Matthew agreeing with you. Ole Miss has been overranked. Florida is awful. LSU is not making the playoff. I agree with that. LSU is not making the playoff. Fully agree with that. Dave says, I think Michigan can beat Ohio State. I think they are a more cohesive team from top to bottom. Remember, I said that. We will when we get to that point, when we get to the season finale. If that is the case, if Michigan does beat Ohio State in Columbus, we will come right back to this comment. I love it. Dave, you and I are definitely on the same page here. I like what you're saying. I like what you're saying here. Where was it? I gotta find it. That he loves the playoff format, that he is sick of morons and ivory towers making decisions on the 4 teams that get in. And I fully agree with that. And I have been a proponent of changing the playoff format for years. I have been a proponent of hating the committee for years. I agree that you are bringing in these very rich, elitist committee members, big-time athletic directors, big-time donors, big-time super fans. Like, I still laugh at Condoleezza Rice getting a spot on the committee. We're putting people on there that don't know football well enough to decide who gets in. To not only who gets in, but who goes to a New Year's Six bowl game. We're not putting qualified people in there, because I'm going to be honest with you. Athletic directors, they don't know football either. They think, we're going to make the Texas Tech athletic director, he's going to become the head of the playoff committee. What qualifies him to do that? Because he's done a pretty good job as athletic director at Texas Tech? Good for him. You made some good basketball hires. You made some good football hires. Not really. I mean, when we think about it, have they? Matt Wells, yeah, that was a good one. So we're putting people on there that don't know football. Now, if you said, hey, we're promoting, the top analysts from these major networks, they're going to be your committee? Okay, now we're talking a little bit. We're going to bring in the best statisticians. We're going to bring in the best people that actually watch the games, not these committee members that go, oh, man, I'm tired. It's midnight. I know Pac-12 After Dark's starting, but I'm going to bed. I'll catch it. I'll look at the box score tomorrow. No, they're not good enough, in my opinion. You watch the games. Watch the games. You call yourself a committee member. You call yourself a Heisman voter. You call yourself an AP voter. You watch the games and you pay attention. If you're not going to do that, then you can get out of here. We'll let you go. The world's better without you. We don't need you. Because what you're doing is you're bringing us all down. I fully agree with you, Dave. I'm tired of the playoff committee. I think it's an absolute joke. We're going to have a lot of controversy. We're going to have a lot of issues with them once they expand to 12 teams, but at least we won't have to deal with too much of their crap. There's only so much you can screw up with. I mean, even with basketball, you look at the committee with basketball, 64 teams. You'd think, hey, surely they can get this right. Every year, there are teams that are left out that shouldn't have been. Who was it last year? I think it was Texas A&M, ironically, last year in the NCAA tournament that probably should have gotten in over a team like Notre Dame and was left out as like the first team out. Very wrong. A&M should have been in, especially with the run they put together at the end of the season. You're going to make mistakes. People are going to make mistakes. They're not going to be perfect, but we do need a better system across the board. I also love what everybody was saying about players not wanting to play in their bowl games or not wanting to finish out the season. I agree with everybody talking about there. Matthew saying if bowl games are that overrated, why is Texas A&M actually scared of not making a bowl this year? Love that point. Yeah, you know what? We might just need to put that like on a T-shirt or something, because you're right. You got fans and players that are out there going, we don't care. Bowl games are stupid. Oh, we're going to the Liberty Bowl? I don't care. Well, then why are you scared about it? Is it a status thing? Is it because you don't want to be known as a team that didn't go bowling? Is it because here's the thing, as fans, why do we want our teams to go bowling? Because we get to see them play one more time. It's a reward for the hard work that you put in. And that's what I think people don't understand either. And what the players don't even understand. You work your butt off all year long. Everybody's goal, yes, is to win a conference championship, is to win a national championship. Sure, but guess what? You're not going to do that. Not every team's going to be able to do that. If you're a team like, let's just have a fun one. Let's say Vanderbilt or Kansas. You think Vanderbilt or Kansas are walking into their facility every offseason thinking, we're going to go win a national title? No. Everybody knows they're not. The players know they're not. They wouldn't tell you that, but they know they're not. But they want to go bowling. They're definitely trying to get to 6 wins. Why? You benefit from bowl practices. You get more money for making bowl games. You get an extra game for you to play, an extra game for fans to watch. And it's a big deal to get to put a trophy, regardless of if it's a Sugar Bowl trophy or a Liberty Bowl trophy. It's a big deal getting to put that in your trophy case. It's pride. It's about honor. It's about tradition. And no one seems to care about that anymore. But Matthew, it's a fantastic point. If it's not that big a deal and we don't care, then why are we upset about not making them? If you genuinely don't care about not going bowling, then go ahead and lose out, A&M. Your season's lost. You were supposed to be a playoff contender. You're definitely not that anymore. So just go ahead and lose the rest of your games. If it means nothing to you, just go ahead and forfeit them all. Don't play them. Who cares if you lose? Exactly. Fantastic point. I love that. Love that point. Another reason we don't like A&M. Let's see. Last couple of questions here. Last couple of questions here. Let's see. College football guy. I would love to see Alabama get upset again, but I don't see it happening. However, if they do not get the issues fixed, Bama will go down again. Trust me, they will get those issues fixed. Death Valley will be a tough environment for them, but a whole week of rest to prep, just yeah, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. Ryan DeYoung, thoughts on the future of Baylor football? Great question. They're fine. As long as Dave Aranda's there, they'll be fine. This was definitely a disappointing year, but we knew that Baylor was going to take a step back, right? I mean, they lost so many skill position players from last season. Again, a season where they almost made the playoff that, no one could have expected them to bounce back the way they did. No one saw TCU being this good. I know Dave may have, but no one saw them being this good. Oklahoma State still a power. Kansas kind of being improved. So, no one really saw the Big 12 shaping out the way it did this year. As long as Dave Aranda sticks around at Baylor, and I believe he will be there for a while, Baylor football will be just fine. He's already laid a fantastic foundation to go from 2 wins to 12 wins to most likely going bowling again this year, winning 7-8 games. Baylor football is in a very, very good spot. And to be in that spot after just 3 years with the new coach, it's a fantastic place to be. Glad everybody agreed about the playoff. I mean, Dave just made a fantastic point. I mean, I have hated the playoffs committee. I have hated their structure. They are a bunch of liars. I mean, it's just like politics. We've got a bunch of liars in there. We've got a bunch of people that think they know what they're doing that don't. And it's a joke. It's just an absolute joke. You need better people in there. You know what? Here's my thing. Get better people in there, or better yet, why don't here's something that they would never do because they know how flawed they are. What if we live every Tuesday, 5 o'clock, we're going to film for all to see what goes on in that big committee room. We're going to listen live to the discussions that are being had between these committee members. We're going to hear what they're saying about certain teams. We're going to hear what they're saying about certain players, about certain coaches. We're going to hear what they're saying. Guess what? They would never agree to do that. If it's a fair and honest system, if it is a unbiased system and way of voting and doing things, then you should have no reason. You have no reason to be scared. Let's put a camera crew in there, and let's let everybody that wants to watch it on TV and hear what they're saying. We still might not agree with them, but at least we're getting to hear them. I guarantee you things will be a little bit different because guess what? You won't hear words like TV ratings. You won't hear words like, we need them to be ranked for a top 25 matchup on Saturday. You won't hear things saying, we can't leave Alabama out of the playoff. You won't hear those things if they know they're being watched and they know they're being listened. But they would never do that. It's a flawed system. It's a biased system. Expanding the playoffs to 12 teams is going to help with that. But ultimately, until we get people that know what they're doing, until we get competent people in that room, it will continue to be a flawed system. Another reason why the BCS era wasn't horrible. It was a computer. Didn't have feelings. Solely based on the facts, solely based on the results. Let's see. I agree with you, Matthew. Even an 8-team playoff would be better. Just anything better than 4. Thought on Georgia-Tennessee game next week. We will have so much analysis on Georgia-Tennessee next week, Robert. We will have so much talk on that. I'm really excited for it. Going to be a great game. Game of the century, possibly, right? We seem to have had a lot of game of the centuries this century, but that'll be up there for sure. Georgia, DM Sam, what odds North Carolina makes a playoff if they won out? I think you got to put them in, right? Who's their one loss again? Was it App State? No. Who did they lose to? I'm blanking on who they lost to already. It wasn't App State? It was somebody else. Looking it up. So many games, I'm telling you. No, so they lost to Notre Dame. Yeah, they're fine. Forgot. They're fine. If North Carolina wins out, including a potential ACC championship over an undefeated Clemson, I think North Carolina has to be in. How could they not be? Especially if Notre Dame finishes with 7, 8 wins, somewhere around there, depending on how they finish. As long as Notre Dame goes bowling, has a winning record, I don't see how you can let them not put them in. It'd be interesting to see if they do. A one-loss ACC champion, North Carolina, whose resume isn't that great, but still an ACC champion, they'd put Clemson in with one loss. Guarantee you. They would put Clemson in. If Clemson had lost to Wake Forest but then won out, Clemson would be in there. So why does North Carolina not get the same treatment? Clemson's resume isn't that much better. The UNC would have beaten NC State. So, that's a great, excellent question. But I do think, yes, they have to be in. If they go 12-1, I think they have to be in. They won't go 12-1, but I think they'd have to be. Dave, yeah, cocktails and business deals. And no football talk. Exactly. It's a money thing. It's a status thing. When you get promoted to the college football playoff committee, you get to put that on your resume. Say you were there. They're going there, getting free lodging, free airfare, free drinks, free food to sit there and just say, I've heard Alabama's good. Put them at number 1. I've heard Georgia's pretty good. Let's put them in there too. Oh, we got these fancy computers and we can punch in our yeah, a bunch of BS. It's ridiculous. It's an absolute joke. Yeah, it's an absolute joke. All right. And last thing, college football guy with North Carolina, 2 top 10 wins over Wake Forest and Clemson. If North Carolina wins out, yeah, they're in. I don't see how you could not put them out. They got a win over Wake Forest. They might have a ranked win over NC State. They have a ranked win over Clemson. They have an ACC title to their name. Their lone loss was earlier in the year to Notre Dame, who might be a 7-8 win team when it's all said and done. I don't see how you could leave them out. Sam says, would you rather see Oregon USC in the Pac-12 championship or a UCLA rematch? I think I'd like to see Oregon USC, to be honest with you. I'd love to see UCLA just because it'd be someone different. It'd be fun to see them in there. But boy, man, I tell you, that would be fun to see Oregon USC. That'd be a fun one. Love to see Dan Lanning, great defensive mind. Lincoln Riley, great offensive mind. 2 great offenses anyway. The Oregon's been fantastic offensively. Bo Nix, Caleb Williams. That's the championship I'd like to see, and I'd love it if it had playoff implications on top of it. So yeah, be fun. But with that, guys, we will wrap things up. I know I said things need to be a little bit shorter. Actually, you have to run tonight anyway, so it was actually a pretty decent long live stream, all things considered. So having said that, thank you all so much. What a night! What a night! Great comments on the phone, great phone discussions, great comments in the chat. Love talking about the expanded playoff. Love talking about our potential. You know what it is. Upset alert, babies. What we love to do on Wednesdays with this wacky banana shirt. We're going to bring it out maybe every Wednesday now because it seems to be the most popular. Got to give the people what they want, right? But having said that, guys, thank you all so much for a fantastic evening. Make sure to stay tuned. We've got the Kentucky-Tennessee video coming out tomorrow. We've got the Oklahoma State-Kansas State video coming out on Friday. We've got analysis on both of those. You do not want to miss out. Some of the biggest matchups of the weekend. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. So stay tuned. I want to give major shout-outs to my man Sam. We appreciate you, Robert Sharpton, Doggy, college football guy. Thank you for calling in for the first time tonight. We appreciate you. Dave, as always, we appreciate you very much. Same with Matthew Hazelhorst. Great to hear from you tonight. Glad you were able to join us. Shout out to Chris Wilson. We will touch more on Arkansas next week. I just missed your comment. I apologize for that. But Chris, nice to have you here tonight. We appreciate you. Scotty B, the Baylor King, Paxton D. Wayne, Ionic Bond, George Stice, Hunter5657. Let's see who else. I want to give my shout out. Stephen Cuffey, he wasn't here, but we always appreciate him. Eddie Rose, as always. Paxton, Jerry Turner, we appreciate you. Thanks for being here, my man. Go Cuse, LCD3. And everybody else who I may have mentioned or not have mentioned, we appreciate you, all of your support. Have a great rest of your night. Enjoy your college football weekend, and we'll see you back here on another Gridiron Expert live stream next Tuesday. But we'll see you back here on the channel tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Time with our